Hello everyone, and welcome to the version 15.5 Schoolbox walkthrough. My name's James Leckie. I'm going to be giving you a run through today of the latest release from Schoolbox, version 15.5, and we're going to be looking at some of the big revolutionary changes we've done in user interface design, specifically around responsive and how that will affect your school and what to be aware of when deploying this update to your systems. So you can get the most out of the latest features. Just firstly, we're going to have a bit of housekeeping. With the system what we're using today, we're using Google Hangouts, and if you are logged into Google Hangouts, you can use the Q&A feature built into Hangouts to ask questions. And I do encourage everyone to get on board and post your questions into the Q&A section within the Hangouts. At the end of this session, I will go through all those questions and answer those questions specifically, and we always find that adds a lot of value to these sessions. So while you're going, if you have any questions or anything you want further explanation of, just post it into the Q&A section and that will alert me to answer that question at the end of the session. If you are not logged into Google or you don't have a Hangout, feel free to go on and post it using the hashtag SBV15. We'll be monitoring that, and we'll try and grab any hashtagged questions that go on Twitter and put them into the Q&A system for me to answer as well. So hopefully at the end of this session, we'll have all the questions you have to be answered. We'll go through them as well. Just a final note, we are recording this session. As people are aware, this does go up on our release notes following this session, so you'll be able to watch this in perpetuity. So just be aware that we are recording this event. Just to go through quickly what our most notable features would be, we've obviously got the responsive design, and the new responsive interface is probably the biggest key feature, and that's what we've spent most of our time on for this release. But that means a lot of different things. Firstly, it means we've got mobile phone support now throughout the entire system. So you can use the entire Schoolbox functionality on any device, whether it be a mobile phone all the way up to a large screen desktop. Great for BYOD schools because now you don't even need to say what screen size. We support all screen sizes. Of course, with a lot of those mobile devices and iPads and other devices and surfaces now, we're seeing a lot more touch interfaces. So that's also been a big part of our responsive redesign, looking at how we can actually make touch interfaces more friendly within the Schoolbox environment. Next, we've got the skin builder. The skin builder, we looked at making it so that you can actually customize and alter your own skin. So we wanted to put the control of your look and feel back in the hands of your school rather than having to come through our support desk for any changes you wanted there. So the skin builder's available in this release. And a few other bits and pieces. We've obviously improved modals, we've improved the way you interact with different interface elements, all along with that whole redesign of the interface. So we'll talk a bit about some of those changes within the system today as well. So let's get started straight into looking at the system today. And I'm hoping that by now many of you have actually already seen the alpha site. We've had our meetup release and we handed out passwords for that, and we've also since deployed this onto many of your dev servers. But if this is the first time you're seeing the interface, this is what the new interface looks like. We tried to keep many of the same features and functionality of the old interface so that users didn't have that large, I guess, feature shock when they moved from one interface to the other. We wanted it to be familiar yet new. So we wanted it to be something that you could instantly recognize as the old Schoolbox, but also something that would work well on all of those different devices that we were talking about earlier. So to that end, we've tried to keep as many elements there on the screen as possible, but we also wanted to make them much more user-friendly. So firstly, along the top here, we have our tabs. Those tabs have been turned into nice large buttons now. Obviously, respecting a touch input, these need to be bigger and easier to click on. And they're also visual now, so they're much more sort of friendly for the users to remember what those icons are, and so they know exactly where to go without having to read the text, reducing the reliance on text-heavy interfaces as well. You'll also note that our side navigation remains. And in this screen here, you can still see that we have our left-hand navigation system that's always been there. So you can still have all your navigation elements. You still have the quick links to your groups and to your class pages. All of those still remain in that left-hand navigation. One significant change was the change to the way we did notifications. Previously, notifications were stashed away inside a drop-down. That's now always visible on my screen, on this side screen. It isn't always visible on smaller screens, but it is always there on the larger screen. So you can always see the most recent activity that's happening throughout Schoolbox. So as messages will be coming in, they'll actually appear, if you're on a big desktop screen with room to spare, they'll always be appearing in real time on that screen directly into that area along the side there. If I just quickly switch into a teacher, you can see now that I have my notifications are coming through. I can see my calendar, obviously, and my timetable is all there and available. And I just want to show you the effect of changing and looking at this system on different screen resolutions. Let's just quickly have a look at the emulator and emulate a few different types of devices here. So let's start with a standard laptop screen. So here we can see the notifications have collapsed and we no longer have them I guess, displayed. We don't have enough real estate for those to be always on, so we've collapsed those, giving more room to the content. Of course, clicking on the notifications will reveal those notifications so you can see them, but they are stashed off canvas so that we don't get them in the way when we don't need them. As we shrink down further into smaller devices, perhaps we go to an iPad next, we then find that we've got the iPad system. And within the iPad, we can see that it's collapsed again, and we can flip that around to being the landscape as well. And we have both of those different views. I'll just refresh that just quickly. That's actually what it looks like on portrait for the iPad. Okay, so you'll note here that we've stashed both the notifications area and the left-hand navigation area. So now we've reduced the amount of space that we require so we can focus on the content and give the content the full space of the portrait-sized iPad screen. Of course, all of these links are nice and large because this is a touch-based interface. So you can see there my little thumb can fit into all of these icons and quite easily click on all those interface elements. If we go one step further down and say we go to an iPhone 6, and right down at the iPhone 6, I'll just refresh that screen, we now see that everything's been crammed into that small screen. Some of the tabs have disappeared, but they have been relocated into the side navigation in the off-canvas navigation that we have here. All of our links through to our services are still available, and through to our chemistry areas and subjects are all available through that side navigation. In the content area, we've done a few things to resize this material to make it fit. For example, now your timetable appears vertically rather than horizontally so that we can fit it onto the mobile screen. And you'll see the icons have readjusted to lay themselves out across that screen. And of course, all of these news items have been fitted in perfectly to that screen size. And even the large banner advertisements still continue to function down on the mobile phone device. So we're quite happy that we've achieved this level of, I guess, content that's available across all devices, depending on whatever device you're using. You'll be still able to get your due work, you'll be able to see your homework, you'll be able to see your timetables. Even the calendar is completely accessible on the mobile device as well. So we've got all of the functionality that is in all of Schoolbox through all of the devices. Okay, I'm just going to revert now back to my original size and original look. I'm going to quickly go through now some of the things that we've done with the admin system. Before I do that, I just want to discuss some of the the technology here. Behind the scenes, we are now running on a foundation base plate for our CSS. That means that all of our components and things like that are built with this new system called Foundation. That's meant that we've got a complete flexible design. That's what's built the technology underneath for those that are interested. All of these icons have now been converted to a font, so they're scalable vectors. What that means is that no matter what screen DPI you have, those icons will remain crisp and clear no matter what resolution screen you have. Even if you've got the latest iPhone with that high density display, those icons should still remain clear and crisp. Going into the admin area now, one of the first things you'll note is we've now added in this left-hand side here, we've put your portrait profile and your account details in the left-hand side here. You'll find that your quick links to your profile, settings, and even the new admin link is available there. So you'll find the quick link to the administration system for all super users can now be found directly in the side navigation. Going into the admin system, not a lot here has changed in terms of functionality, but there's a few highlights that I thought I might point out. Firstly, under the settings area, we have the new skin configuration area. So that's located under settings, skin config. In here, you will find the ability to turn the skin builder on. If you leave the skin builder off, it will continue to use your existing skin. By turning skin builder on, you will allow the skin builder to take over control of your settings, and then all of these settings will then become active. So you can start using these controls to control the colors. And of course, there's a lot of different things that you control the colors of, but fundamentally these come down to the main navigation, which is this top area along here, the left-hand side menu, which is the left-hand side down here, the content, so that's all the material that's inside the area in the middle of the screen, and then there's a few other bits and pieces, submits and accents to highlight information in the content area or contrast against existing colors. Below that, we have the ability to upload all of your imagery. So this is where you would put your logos, your square logos, your large logos, your login logo, and also the background image that you wish to use for your login screen. Note for those that are using single sign-on, most of you will already have no longer require a Schoolbox login screen, but you can, of course, configure that login screen using these input buttons as well. The logo square option here will control what image we use on the mobile devices. So when we look here, this image up here on the top is what we call logo large. That is the large logo. So that'll be your full crest. That'll be the biggest possible version of yours. It might have some text in it, it might have your name in it. That type of information would go in that logo large. And that can be a portrait, and there's no problem with that. With the logo square, it's what we use for your icon when you bookmark the app on your phone. It's also what we use on the mobile phone as the branding. So if I just quickly switch back into the mobile view again, I'll just demonstrate where that is visible. So on the iPhone, you can see there's a square logo of the whale, a big white logo. That is your square logo. So that'll be used for your icon, your fav icon, and also for your mobile branding as well. Obviously, we don't have a lot of room to put a large image there, so that's something that you would keep quite small, approximately about 100 to 120 pixels in diameter, height and width. Okay. So that's the basis of the skin config. But for those out there that want to go a bit further or perhaps do some customizations and extend what is possible through the basic config options, we've also added the ability to input your own custom CSS. You can use this to actually write CSS into here. And for those that want to go even further, this is actually plugged into our Sass compiler. So you can use all the Sass functionality and mix-ins and variables and attach those into your CSS as well. So just be aware that that can extend the design of your interface quite extensively. If they've got some customizations, for example, you wanted to maybe put a background image on this header bar, you could do that via the custom CSS. If you wanted to alter the way things look in any particular content area, that custom CSS would be the place to put that content. So that's how you alter your look and feel. If you're unsure or you don't have the experience or expertise on how to configure that custom CSS, by all means contact us and we will help you get the CSS that you need to customize your skin further. Okay, moving on now. Just a couple of other bits and pieces that we have. There's a new engagement report in Schoolbox. So this new report is available for all users to see, or to all admin users to see exactly how Schoolbox is being used within the system. Now, at the moment, it will give you login totals. So this is the amount of users that have logged in each role. It will provide you with details about what percentage of those users logged in. So what percentage did we see of each user that month? We can also have a look at some other types of information. For example, how much the due work system is being used, how many quizzes are being created and attempted, the types of files being uploaded and how many files are being accessed and created, information about links, file types, obviously videos watched, images viewed, news posted. So this is across the school and across group. The collaboration features being used. I think this is a really interesting one because this shows you what features are being used the most within Schoolbox in terms of the collaboration functionality. So how many blog posts are being posted, how many comments are being made, how many social stream posts are being made. This is quite an interesting report to look at, and you can see obviously a growth and trend over multiple months. Component usage, so what components are actually on pages the most. Be aware, of course, that this data is going to be affected by the fact that you have templates that automatically put certain components on, and so this isn't aware of whether the component's being used or not, it's just whether it's being put on the page or not. So this will just tell you what components are being put on pages the most. And of course, for those that are connecting up the mobile apps, this will tell you how many people in each of the roles have registered to use the mobile app. So we can track that information as well. Also in here, you'll note down the bottom the ability to report range to alter the range of the report. So you can extend this. By default, it's showing 6 months, but you can extend this to any range you want. Be aware, of course, it will take longer to create bigger reports, but if you want to see the data over a year or 2 years, it can potentially create those reports as well. We do plan to extend this report further with graphs in the future, but just for the moment, everyone was asking for this data, so we've made it available, and if you do need it, just copy it into an Excel spreadsheet and you can process it further for reporting from there. So that data is all available for you now. Okay, next up, let's have a look at some of the features that will be benefiting staff. So one of the main things that I guess for staff that will be changing is some of the components have altered the way they work slightly. Let's just have a look at some of those components and what they do. Obviously, some things like tiles was already built with this responsive interface in mind, and so it works perfectly inside the responsive interfaces. Some of the other older components, however, don't work so well with responsiveness, so we had to rebuild some of those components. The video player works quite well, and the image and image slideshow have both been upgraded to work more in a better way with the responsive design. So if you're using the image component, if I put that on my page, this component now will automatically adjust the image size to the appropriate image for what I want to do. Let me just find a download. And I can place that image directly into there, and it will automatically drop that image in and resize it perfectly to fit the screen. Previously, this image component would have had size and alignment. That's been stripped out now to simplify the whole process. So it's much easier to use now. We also have updated the image slideshow component. The image slideshow component, which I've just dropped in the wrong spot, by default, it just shows an image like so. But if I were to insert more images into it, I need to post that image. Oh, for those that haven't seen, the upload modal has now been changed. So this has now got all the options that you've previously been used to are now in a collapsible form. This will work much better now on your mobile phone, so you can use this new interface on your mobile phone to access all of the resources on all of your devices. So uploading that file now into my slideshow automatically creates a slideshow, and when we've now got the addition of the arrows, so I can slide through those images, but it also will auto slide through those images. Once again, we've stripped out the alignment options, the size options. You've still got the ability to add captions, so I can place captions on, change the heading, and update that, and change the timing. So that's a bit fast. Let's make that 10 seconds and update that slideshow. So now we have the captions down the bottom, and it's on a 10-second slider. So it's a much neater experience for that slideshow component. Okay, so that component is updated, but there are many more that have been updated in similar ways. I'm not going to have time to go through all. I just wanted to show some quick highlights of the types of things that we've done to improve the experience for responsive interfaces. Another component that has heavily been updated is the course outline. Previously, this component had many buttons all over it, and we've simplified that and removed all of those buttons that you previously would have seen. And those buttons have now been put under the 3 dots. From here, you're able to create your work, create a quiz, create a task, view your progress report, or modify and delete the course as a whole. Creating a task now prompts you with this small modal dialog where you can upload a file, an attachment, and create a new task. And creating that task is as simple as doing that process there. So it's a much more simplified interface for your users, and of course all of these interfaces have been updated as well. Okay. So throughout the submission system, there's been many changes to the interface, but hopefully they've all been for the better to slimline, I guess, the experience so that you can more quickly and easily manage and control your course and the work that you've set, and controlled who's done what and when. Okay, one other thing I forgot to mention before when I was posting images, there used to be a multi-file uploading screen. That has been removed in this version. Obviously that component was not compatible with mobile devices. In fact, it's not really compatible with Flash at all anymore, being removed from most browsers. So we've since removed that page. We hope that the drag and drop functionality where you can drop multiple files has replaced that now, so we no longer require that page. Instead, just drag and drop all of your pictures onto the component, such as the image gallery, and it will upload all of those into the image gallery for you. I should note that the resource browser has been completely rewritten as well. The resource browser previously was 3 panes, as you remember, and on a small mobile screen, there's definitely not enough room for 3 panes. So what we've done with this version is we've made it 2 panes, but we've stacked them vertically. What the 2 panes mean is that all your folders and home pages are now visible in this tree, so you can still browse through it as if it was a tree, as it did in the past. But now all the files are also included in the tree as well. So any files or links that are part of that tree are also located in there. So it's much more similar to, for example, a Windows browser than a Mac browser. So you can expect to see all the files in there, and below there you'll see all the details of those files as you click on them. And you can see further information by clicking the small I to see the details. Okay, so there's not a lot to be too afraid about there, but it needs to be pointed out that's probably the most significant change to an interface that we've made in the system. This is probably the interface that is probably the least familiar from all the other interfaces that we've had before, in the fact that this used to be 3 panels and it's now just 2. But that's, I think, for the better, because now if we look at this on a mobile device, let me just bring up the mobile interface. We can see that this whole interface now will work all the way down to a mobile phone. So we can actually use this on our mobile devices as well, which previously it was just not possible in the 3 panel. Note, if you want to load the class page associated with this, you click on the home icon and that will load the class page. While I'm here in the mobile phone view, I should note that previously you would have been aware that we had 1 or 2 column layouts on pages. With the mobile device, we obviously collapse those 2 columns down into a single column. So previously where you would have had a top column, a left column and a right column, on the mobile phone you just have 1 long column and everything stacked in order from top, left and then right. But of course everything fits nicely on the mobile device, and when you're on a touchscreen it's quite easy to scroll through the information. Okay. All right, so we've pretty much covered all of the material that I wanted to go through. There's one more thing that I should just touch on, which is from a parent's perspective. One small change that I've noted as part of this, and there's lots of many small changes, but just one that I think affects parents. As of this update, you'll now find that the parent information for the timetable has been broken into tabs. So as a parent, when I click on the timetable tab, I now see a tab for each of my students. Rachel Rhodes, David Rhodes, Madison. So we've just made that information a bit more accessible for the parents so they can quickly and easily access all the timetables for their students. But that was just a small change that affected parents. Most of the other functionality is just the same for parents as it was before. Okay, so that about wraps up my summary of the system. I'm now going to have a look at some of the questions, and if you've got any questions, please make sure you post them now so that I can go through your questions and hopefully get into some more detail about a few different topics. Okay, Chris says he doesn't see engagement in my admin area. So just to answer that, Chris, we've just launched that engagement report about 15 minutes ago. So although it's been hanging around in our systems for a while, it's only just made it into the latest beta release, which will be going out later today. So hopefully you'll see that tomorrow in your system, and certainly it'll be there as part of the gold release when we make the gold release live later this week. Okay, David Moore asks, is there ability to email parents of students in a extracurricular group such as a sports team? So just to go through that, I don't think there currently is the ability to email parents from an extracurricular group unless your extracurricular group is a synergetic or external class code. If it is a class code in your timetable or curriculum database, we will then use that and create a class list, and from that class list you can email the parents of the students in that group. But if it's an extracurricular group just managed in Schoolbox, at the moment we don't have the ability to email the parents of the members of a group. We got any other questions? Because I've got to the end of the list here, so if anyone's got anything else they want to ask, please make sure you ask it now. Okay, if we've got no further questions, I think I'll pretty much, oh no, here we go. There's a whole lot coming through now. Excellent, got a few. So Chris, again, there seems to be a variety of fonts now, and why, and any chance these could be streamlined to do themselves custom, e.g. titles to text box and things now don't fit. Greeting is quite large. Why? Okay, good question. So what we've tried to do with the fonts is create a consistent, I guess, size system for all the fonts. Now, what that means is these are semantically sized and they're correct size and proportioned for the particular font area that they are. This font here across the top is a H1, and that will always be that size. The next font size down is a H2, and then below that we have a H3. All of these are sized appropriately to the actual context of where they are. So you'll see that they get slightly smaller as you go down. So we have size 1, size 2, size 3, and then text font size. So the idea there is that we have some sort of context for what the material is and for the relevance and importance of that particular piece of content. Now, the idea being that then draws your eyes to the most critical pieces of information and brings their relevance up further so that they're consistently in the right order of semantic nature. Having said that, we do recognise that in some cases the fonts are going to be too large for the elements. So for example, if I was to go to the principal's blog here, and actually go to the news page, it's a good page to look at. For example, here the heading, Kookaburras facing WA's nasty pasties in quarters. On my screen, that's perfectly fine. It makes sense in that context. But if I go to, for example, a mobile phone, screen size, and then see that on the mobile phone, you'll see that the font now gets cut off because there's not enough screen size. So one of the things that we're discussing is whether it's better to cut the font off or to wrap it down and make it take multiple lines, or to make it smaller. In fact, you would have noticed, if you're quite keen on the eye, that these fonts actually did shrink slightly on the mobile phone. They have actually got smaller on mobile devices by default. But the question there is, what should we do with that? Should we wrap? Should we make it smaller? Or should we, I guess, do something else? Now, that approach would be different for different spaces and different areas. And so we're going through at the moment and trying to identify areas where that might be a problem and try and fixing those problems. Obviously, wrapping is not a good solution in some scenarios, whereas wrapping may be important, that all the text is visible in others. So that's going to be a case-by-case basis. But fundamentally, the text sizes are based on that semantic nature of where they exist within the page, so that for a user reading it, they can tell what is the most important information by the size of the font. Okay, next question. Phil, is it possible to include examples of CSS config in your wiki, the help page on Schoolbox? Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We'll make sure that the support team includes some CSS config examples. And if we're doing stuff for other schools that we think might be useful for other people, and we've got some sample code, we'll drop that up there as well so that you can see it. We'll certainly make sure that you can get access to all our samples for that type of work that we do for configuring that if you want to do it further. So there might be some examples there, like I said, like the header, background image. We might throw some things up for that. We might throw some examples up of creating pretty pictures for your subject icons, those types of things. So we'll put anything that we think is useful up on our wiki as well. Good suggestion, Phil. So next question from William. So William asks, the headings in the left nav for subjects groups are very light and hard to read, especially on the iPad. Is it possible to make it bolder? William, this was actually a bug that we fixed a couple of releases ago in the beta process. Originally, they were set to a weight of 100. We've since increased the weight of those to 400. Hopefully that should deal with that issue. But for those that aren't aware, you can see here the font there is quite light. We have increase the weighting on that, but also note that that color of that font is completely controllable by you, so you can control the color as well as we will make sure that weighting is much heavier, which we've done now, so that should be much easier to read on those devices. We don't want to use the 100 weight anymore. What's next? How do we upgrade to version 15.5 from David? So version 15.5 upgrade will be available most likely next week. You can then choose when you want to upgrade. The process will just be a matter of notifying our team once the email goes out to announce the gold release. You just reply to that email and say, update me, and let us know what date you want to be updated, and we'll make that happen on your server. Obviously, be aware that you need to probably, before doing the upgrade process, make sure you know what you're going to do about your skin and how you're going to convert from your existing skin to the new skin builder. So I would highly recommend, before requesting a live upgrade, that you've got your skin perfect on your dev server and you're happy. And then once you've done the upgrade, we can then copy any settings that you've got from your dev server across to the live server for you, so that it all comes across and it's copied in to your live site, so you've got what you had on your dev set correctly in live. So it's a matter of just scheduling in a time, but be sure that you've got everything right before you do the process. Okay. Oh, just got a question here from Chris. Okay, Chris asks, the delete modifier, not sure from a design point of view for users it should be spaced and positioned as it seems to be now is on the left, right, where our eyes are, much preferred to the right in the previous version. Okay. I think it actually, I'm just trying to think of where that was the case. Let me have a look. So the edit button, I can't edit anything while I'm a parent, so I'll just log in as an admin. From the perspective of the edit process, when you click on a news article, you'll now find that the edit button looks like a little pen, obviously, and you can click on that to click edit for most of the items. One of the changes that we've made with I guess the functionality here is modify the news now spans the full width at the bottom, and that's the primary function. So once you've completed filling out this form, there's only one button to press. Now, obviously, we also needed to have the delete function somewhere. So you'll find the delete function is up in the top right-hand corner. Now, we've deliberately put it out of the way so that it isn't the primary function, because we don't want people accidentally pressing the delete button. So that is deliberately put in an out-of-the-way place. So just be aware that we've deliberately made sure that that's no longer in the primary location. Okay, there's a question here from Sean. Does inline grader work on mobile? It's a good question. Some of its functionality does work, but some of it doesn't work. For example, we are aware that some of the drawing functionality doesn't work. So you just need to take it with a grain of salt. It is going to be quite hard to obviously annotate on a student's piece of work on a mobile phone. So I can't guarantee that that's going to completely be functional. It's a third-party system, so we can't guarantee that that's fully responsive. And the same goes for some other third-party systems that are embedded within Schoolbox, such as Community Portal and other third-party systems that we integrate with. If we're sending you out to those systems, they're likely not to be responsive, and you're always going to be limited by what they're doing in their systems. So we've done our best to make everything in our system mobile responsive, but when we get into third-party systems such as Inline Grader, PlagScan, and also Community Portal, we are a bit limited there in terms of what will and won't work with mobile phones. So just be aware of that issue when rolling this out, that although 99% of functionality will work, there are things outside of our control that we can't control that won't work. When will training videos for 15.5 be updated? From Nigel. Okay, so currently we're in the process of building a new help centre that you're aware of. That's been very successful. Help.schoolbox.com.au. If you haven't checked it out already, please get in touch. But that area there is currently under production, and that area there will be built on the 5.5 look and feel. And we do plan to move forward from the wiki and replace it with this help center over time, and all the new content being built in help, which will also be, of course, structured into courses and online self-progressed learning, will be, of course, built for 15.5. So the majority of the content in the new help.schoolbox.com.au will be 15.5 relevant. Of course, we're aware that the content is not going to look exactly the same, but that's always been our issue with documentation, because, as you know, every school has their own look and feel, and that's always been our issue, that although the concepts might be the same, when it comes to an actual school's implementation, our training videos are only relevant to our demo skin, and that's another issue. But we will try and update all of our content from this point on to be on 15.5. We're not going to be able to do all those videos. There's hundreds of them, but we'll try and do the most relevant stuff that is necessary over the next few months to get that up to date. Certainly the core of the course will be done on 15.5. From Finchner, they ask, in regarding to the custom skin builder, can we get a video on how to use all the different skin builder features? Sure. So I've just asked, we've had Matt working away just over the last few weeks, building a new help page that is going to run you through all of the different features of that skin builder. I don't think it's incredibly complex. It's not something that there's a lot of hidden things. It's just really change this color and it changes those colors. So we're just going to provide you with some screenshots and identify what attributes change what colors, so that that's clear to you, sort of like a bit of a table of contents or legend that you can use to look up and reference. We also plan on providing a PSD that you can then use to change the colors and see how it would affect in real time in a PSD file. And that might be useful for your design agencies and other branding agencies to help you design a good look and feel. So you can provide them with the PSD, and they can then send that back to us, so we can then use those values that they put into the PSD to create your skin. So that's sort of what we were thinking of doing as well with that as well. Okay. Okay, so Chris has further clarified a question about the delete buttons. So he was referring to the buttons underneath the components. So we'll just have a look at those components there. So Chris was asking about the delete and modify buttons here, about which way around they are. I didn't actually notice that they had swapped direction, but if they have, I'll get that fixed up for you. Report that as an issue. There's not a problem. I don't have any particular purpose for the modifier being. In fact, I don't. I would prefer if the modifier was on the left, as you say. That makes more sense to me. Okay, next question from Fintoner. In relation to custom skinning, can we get the padding around the left-hand navigation logo removed? Not a problem. Yeah, with the custom CSS, that'll only take a one-liner to remove the padding. So if you want to remove the padding on that logo, that's very easy to do with the custom CSS. We just target that header logo and set padding equal to 0. Not a problem. Just ask the support guys on how to do that, and I'll help you out. Okay, next up, David. Just to clarify previous answer, James, why do we have to change our skin before going version 15? Can we change our skin at any time? So yeah, so fundamentally you can. So you can, of course, keep your existing navigation elements and Chrome as it is. Now, the issue with that is that there are going to be some issues that we haven't tested for. So if your skin conflicts with something that we've done in the content area, there may be issues, and we can't foresee all the potential issues, but it is potentially possible that you could continue to use your existing skin. Note that your existing skin will not be responsive. It will not have any of the new features or functions. It will just be what you had previously. If you were going to probably keep your existing skin, at this stage, it might be best to wait on version 15 for a bit longer and work out a migration plan. You can come across to 15.5. There's not a lot of new features in 15.5. So if you want to keep your existing skin for the moment, I would just stay on version 15 for the time being. Okay, one more question. What do forms look like now, for example, on creating due work? Okay, so let's have a look at a due work form. So when, as a teacher, I create a new piece of work for one of my subjects, say, for example, I want to create some work for French. I'll post it due work. The form looks like so. So we can see that we have a form. This has now been simplified down so that it will respond all the way down to small screens. We obviously needed to get rid of the left-hand nav. You'll also notice that things like the inline help has now been put under this little pop-up dialog box just to give us a bit more extra space to breathe with the forms. We've done as much collapsing of content as we possibly can. And just to show you what this would look like on a mobile device, we'll just go into the emulator again and emulate an iPhone. So we can see here that full form has collapsed down onto a mobile phone device. And all the functionality is still all available on a mobile phone. So for those of you who want to post homework from your mobile phone, you can now do that. Okay. Any other questions? No, I think I've got to the bottom of the list of the questions. Thank you everyone for participating and throwing me those questions today. It's great to get those questions for the session. I think it really adds a lot of depth to the webinar. So thank you for your participation. I would also just like to mention that we'll be updating our resources and our documentation and all the other information over the next few weeks to reference the new look and feel. So we'll be quickly scrambling to get as much of that documented as possible. This system will be going live probably this week, but for most people, you'll be looking at updating it over the Christmas break. We do intend to do another minor release before Christmas, what we're calling version 15.6. Now, as this version 15.5 has very little new functionality, it's been primarily focused on this new interface. We wanted to make sure we got you some new features before Christmas. So we're looking at rebuilding rubrics. We're looking at a new sync builder so that you can manage your own sync, automatic provisioning of user accounts and manage your own sync scripts. And we're also looking to improve our media embedding capabilities, so adding in video, YouTube, and things like that directly into your WYSIWYG editor, so you can more easily embed media into your WYSIWYG content areas. So look for that before Christmas. So there'll be a small release around Christmas time, and hopefully for the new year we'll have 15.6 out that you can then start using at your schools for next year. All right, so that's about sums up everything that I've got to do today. Thank you once again for coming along. If you've got any questions, feel free to send them through to support. We'll always be there to answer any further questions. And once again, thanks very much.